I used to think that night cleaning was a safe job. It was hard, it was boring, but it was stable. It was quiet. No one bothered me. But in 2011, in the Willow Creek Community Center building where I worked for 6 months, I learned something. Not every empty building at night is truly empty. And sometimes, sounds that don't belong to any living creature can still follow you from room to room without leaving a footprint. The Willow Creek Center is old, built in the 72nds. During the day there are community classes, a yoga room, a senior club, a mini library, and a community room. When the sun goes down, it gets unnaturally cold, like the wind whistling through the cracks in the doors that no one sees. My shift starts at 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. The 2-day workers would clean up first, and I was responsible for locking all the back doors, turning off all the lights, picking up trash, and cleaning the downstairs living room. The only place I hated going into was the north hallway, where the old pool area had been long since demolished. It smelled like wet tile and 30 years of stagnant water. The first night, I sensed something was wrong. I heard the sound of slippers, soft and quick. Drag a bit, stop, then drag again. I thought it was an elderly person wandering around, so I called out, "Who's there? The center is closed." No answer. I looked down the hallway. No one. No one. But there was a long streak of water in the middle of the floor, as if someone had walked across it with wet feet. Willow Creek had no pool, no showers. There was no reason for the floor to be wet. I wiped it off and continued working. But at 9 p.m. when I returned, the water stain reappeared, longer, fainter, as if trampled by small feet I couldn't see. Around 11 p.m., I was collecting trash from the classrooms when I heard what sounded like children's laughter coming from the common room. I thought someone had forgotten to lock it or someone had sneaked in, so I went to check. When I opened the door, the light was still on, but no one was inside. Something made me stop before I entered. The air was at least 5 degrees colder than outside. The coldness felt like needles pricking me in the breath. On the bench near the door, a children's book was open. I clearly remembered putting it in the cupboard before starting my shift. I walked over to pick it up. The page trembled slightly, as if someone was blowing on it. Beneath the open page was a small, thumb-sized water stain, round and even, like a child's fingerprint. No one had been in or out of this room for 4 hours. I turned off the light, locked the door, and reminded myself, nothing, just a coincidence. But I knew the laughter wasn't a coincidence. Footsteps began to follow me. Not adult footsteps, not running, but something light, shuffling like a child's feet dragging on tile. The sound followed me from room to room. I went into the pottery room on the ground floor and closed the door. After a while, I heard a creaking sound, like someone leaning against the door. Very slowly, I backed away. Still, a faint breathing sound came through the crack in the door, very light, like the breath of a small person trying to breathe through a compressed chest. I held my breath. When I opened the door, no one. But the air draft from the hallway carried the smell of old pool water. The smell was distinct: old chlorine, damp tile, moldy algae. The pool at Willow Creek had been torn down in 1994. No water, no faucet, no reason for that smell to exist. I was starting to get scared. I went down to the storage room in the middle of the night to get new trash bags. The stairs leading down to the storage room were dark, stuffy, and usually echoed whenever someone walked by. This time, as soon as I reached the 3rd step, the echo echoed from below, as if someone had just run through the underground tunnel. I stopped. No movement. Under my feet, the cement floor made a very faint rustling sound, like cloth brushing against a damp floor. I turned on my flashlight. The light hit the streak of water that stretched from the end of the hallway to the very edge of the stairs. Smaller streaks round, spaced out, like a child's footprints but without toes, just even, moist circles, imprinted in a straight line. I walked back up the stairs holding the light in front of me. A click sounded behind me, like someone jumping off a step. I ran out of the basement. I went to the security office. The light was still on, but the door was closed. I knocked. "Frank, is anyone in the basement?" No answer. I tried the door. The room was empty. On the desk was a thick file, half opened by someone. The first page was an incident report for the 12th of October 1994. I read the first few lines and almost froze. 2 boys from the swim club, Samuel and Wyatt, were found in the old pool after practice. 1 survived, 1 died. Accident unexplained. I turned the page. The sketch of the scene showed the path of an unknown water source, stretching from the pool to the equipment room. Small, circular water marks identical to the ones I'd seen in the basement earlier. I turned the last page. The center director's note. The boy who survived said that someone grabbed both of their legs when they fell into the pool. No one else was found in the area. The case is temporarily closed. The pool area is sealed. I collapsed on the chair. Water stains, the smell of chlorine, the sound of flip-flops, a small breath, a circular footprint. I wasn't the only one who saw it. That thing had grabbed both of their legs. The silence in the security office at that moment made me so uncomfortable that it gave me a headache. I wanted to leave the building immediately. I gathered my things, turned off the ground floor lights, and headed straight for the main door. When I was 10 meters away, I heard the sound of dripping water behind me, drop by drop, slow, clear. He didn't turn around. I just walked faster. The drops fell faster. Then I heard small footsteps running on the wet tile floor. Right behind me, I unlocked the door, pushed it, dashed out. The glass door shook after I closed it, as if something had hit it from inside. He didn't look back, just ran straight to the parking lot. A week later, as I was about to leave, I received an email from a former Willow Creek employee. She said the boy who survived the 1994 pool accident didn't live long afterward. The boy wasn't seriously injured, but for several nights in a row, he screamed in his hospital room, saying, "Water is running down my legs," and "There's someone standing in the shadow of the old pool." A month later, he died of cardiac arrest in his sleep. No cause, no explanation. The descriptions before the boy died were exactly what I heard and saw. The smell of old chlorine, the sound of dripping water, circular footprints, a short breath, something dragging on the tile floor. It all matched the 1994 records. I quit my job immediately. I left Illinois 3 weeks later. But to this day, whenever I walk into the dark hallway of any building, be it a hotel, a supermarket, or an office, I sometimes hear the faintest drip of water behind me, and a childish gasp stuck in my throat, right next to my ear. Don't walk. A sound that doesn't belong to a living person, but it doesn't necessarily belong to a dead person either. I used to think the city library was the safest place to work the night shift. Not as noisy as a school, not as dusty as a warehouse, not as stuffy as a community center's tech area. How scary could a building full of books and wooden tables be? That was my thinking before I started working at the Brookshore Public Library, a 3-story building built in the 1960 seconds, with hundreds of shelves, small, gold-colored windows, and a sealed basement that former employees never mentioned. I took the night shift, from 6 p.m. to almost midnight. The work was simple: arranging book carts, wiping down tables, checking the reading room, turning off the machines, locking the back door. But within the first week, I realized that the empty library at night was never really empty. In the evening, when all the students had gone home, the vast space of the library became so quiet that each old book page seemed to breathe. The fluorescent lights were not always bright, sometimes flickering, sometimes completely off, even though the bulbs had just been replaced. The second floor, in particular where reference materials were kept, were rarely read, always felt like you were walking between two rows of people standing very close together and silent. Many nights I heard the very slight sound of chairs moving from a hidden corner. Pushing the book cart, no one. The chairs were still placed close to the table as in the afternoon. Another night, when I was rearranging the old newspaper shelf, I saw the top newspaper quickly flip to another page, even though the air conditioner was off. No wind, no open doors, no people, just the very faint rustling of paper, as if someone had just skimmed through it. I always told myself it was just a change in pressure in the room, but with each passing day, I felt the pressure in that building, like someone was watching me from behind, always about 5 steps away. What really scared me happened on the first floor. I was cleaning up the public computer area when I heard someone tapping their fingertips on the table. Not hard, not fast, just 3 sounds: click, click, click. I turned around, no one. But one of the computers, number 7, was lit. When I clearly remembered the entire row was off. A search window appeared on the screen. No one was typing. No keyboard was stuck. No one was nearby. The text appeared slowly, character by character, as if someone were typing with cold, wet fingers. The book storage in the basement. I stood still, a cold sweat running down my spine. Brookshore Library used to have a basement reading room, but according to scattered accounts from several former employees, it had been closed long before I was born. No one explained why. No one showed me the door to the basement. The basement is not marked on the official map. But the bookshelf labeled Special Archives has a metal door painted the same color as the wall. No handle, no sign, as if it were deliberately hidden. I had never seen it open. The next day, as the library was about to close, I saw something that made me shiver. In the middle of the first floor hallway, right next to the children's literature shelf, a book had fallen to the floor in front of me. No one was near. I went closer. It was a very old children's book. The cover was yellowed. The edges were torn. What was strange was that inside the book was a small handprint, clearly printed on the thin paper, as if someone had just read it. Not an ink stain, not a preprint. A real handprint, gray, faint, the shape of a child's finger. I looked around. No one. But from behind me, I heard a short, sharp breath, like that of a frightened child. I spun around. No one. Saturday night was when it became clear to me that I shouldn't be working here any longer. I was cleaning the quiet reading room when the ceiling lights flickered. The bulbs flickered on and off in a strange rhythm, not a blackout, but as if someone were walking under them, making them flash as they passed. Lights on, dark light dark down the main hallway toward the Special Archives shelf. When the light gathered at the end, I saw that the metal door, painted the same color as the wall, was no longer closed. A small, dark opening. I didn't know why I walked there. Maybe I wanted to make sure no one was sneaking into the library. When I touched the edge of the door, the metal was so cold it felt like ice. The door opened softly, too softly for a door without a handle. Below was a cement staircase leading down to the basement. No lights, no sound, just the scent of old moldy paper mixed with something colder, more oppressive. I turned on the flashlight and shone it down. There was a trail of dust pulled in 2 small lines, as if someone had been dragged by small hands, their nails scraping the thick dust on the floor. Then I heard, "Don't Close it. A child's voice, as soft as the wind, but so clear that I froze. I looked down the stairs again and saw a small hand reaching out to grasp the edge of the fourth step. The hand was gray, as small as my palm. No nails, no patterns, just the shape of a hand, but it could breathe. It retracted the moment the flashlight touched it. I slammed the door shut. I ran straight to the security office, but the security guard was not there. The radio was off. The chair was empty. The coffee cup was still warm. It was as if he had just stood up and left a few seconds ago. I left the library that night. A week later, I learned the truth. A week later, I learned the truth. An older woman contacted me. She had worked at Brookshore in 1987. She said the library had once had a children's reading room in the basement for poor children to study at night. But one night, when there was only one staff member and a few children down there, the lighting system failed, plunging the entire basement into darkness. When the lights came back on shortly afterward, a small boy lay motionless next to a bookshelf, his hands covered in mud and gray dust. No one knew how he crawled there. No one knew what he saw in the darkness. Only the investigation report contained a few lines. Before losing consciousness, the boy kept saying, "Someone pulled my leg." No one else was found in the room. The vault door was permanently locked immediately afterward. I could barely breathe after hearing that. What I saw, a small handprint on the page, a trail of dust, a faint breathing, a flickering light with each invisible step, and a gray hand under the stairs, all matched the 1987 accident report. No one else had gone down into the basement. No one had ever opened that door. But the thing down there, it seemed like it had never left. I left Brookshore just 3 days later. No paycheck for the last week. No return to get anything. To this day, when I enter any library, no matter how bright or crowded, I sometimes hear the sound of small fingers tapping on the table. Tap, 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 like someone was begging me, "Don't turn off the light." A sound that didn't belong to a living child, but it didn't necessarily belong to a dead child either. I started working the night shift at the Mayfield Administration Building in 2015. People joke that the building is older than the city government, but it's really just a rundown, 4-story labyrinthine building with a never-fading smell of damp paper. I've worked in many places, warehouses, dormitories, even the old hospital, but Mayfield is the one that gave me the clearest sense that some rooms should never be opened. Room 406, especially. I didn't know until it was too late. The night shift always started the same. I swiped my card into the main door on the ground floor, checked the reception area, turned off a few rows of lights, and then walked around each floor in a fixed circle. The building at night was almost completely silent. No elevators, no air conditioning, no wind. The silence that made every movement audible. The rustle of my shirt against my belt, the clink of keys, the clatter of my shoe soles against the wall. But by the second week, I began to hear something I was sure wasn't my own. It was the sound of typing, not a modern computer keyboard. It was the sound of an old-fashioned typewriter, a sharp, metallic sound, the final note echoing. In a building that had been completely refurnished 2 decades earlier, that sound couldn't exist. I heard it for the first time as I passed the 3rd-floor staircase. A steady clack, 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 as if someone were trying to type at a rapid pace. I looked around. No one. I walked slowly toward the source of the sound, the 4th floor. The 4th floor was almost completely dark at night. Only the pale blue security warning light in the corner of the printing room was still on. I turned off the flashlight and listened. The tapping stopped. I stood in the dark until my hands began to shake with cold. When I turned on the hallway light, I saw that the entire row of doors were closed except for a single door at the end of the hall, which was slightly ajar. The room was unlike the others. Instead of a modern frosted glass door, it still had an old ivory-painted wooden door, its metal nameplate faded. Typing office, 406. I had never seen it open. As I approached, the small door slid shut quietly. I tried the knob, locked. I planned to ask the management tomorrow, but that never happened because the following nights, the typing noises grew louder, closer, and sometimes stopped just as I approached the door. As if someone knew I was standing outside, I began to pay attention to the lights. The fourth floor had a row of old fluorescent lights that flickered occasionally, but when the typing started, the lights in the hallway in front of door 406 always flickered in a strange rhythm, not completely off, not broken, just flickering as if being watched. One night when I was on patrol, I saw something incredibly strange. In room 406, even though the door was closed, a dim white light leaked out from the bottom crack of the door, like the reflection of a computer screen. But room 406 had no computer. According to the equipment list, it was sealed since 1982, no longer in use. No one explained why. One night around 11 o'clock, the typing started again, this time faster and more chaotic. It was no longer the sound of typing each word, each sentence. It was like someone was hitting the keys with all their might, clack, 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 without stopping. I ran to the 406 hallway. The ceiling light flickered on and off. The air was so cold I could feel my breath billowing in thin wisps. The knocking continued. I touched the doorknob, lock. But when I pulled my hand back, the knocking stopped immediately. Absolute silence fell down the hallway. I turned to leave and heard the sound of a chair being pulled from inside the room, a long, heavy scraping sound, like an old wooden chair being pushed off a table. I gasped. Another sound, this time close to the edge of the door, as if someone were sitting right behind door 406, their backs against it. I shone my flashlight under the crack in the door. In the dim light, I saw 4 fingertips touching the floor from inside the room. Not a shadow, not an illusion. 4 real, white fingers, lightly placed on the tile floor, as if someone were kneeling close to the door to look out through the small crack. I backed away immediately. When I blinked, the fingers disappeared. I ran off the 4th floor. I told the story to an older woman who worked the morning shift. She looked at me for a long time, then whispered, "Don't pay attention. If you hear typing, just go somewhere else." I asked why. She shook her head. "That room has been closed for a long time. It's old news. Don't dig it up again." The way she said it gave me goosebumps, like she believed me, like it had happened before. The next day, she didn't come to work. No one told me why, but what really made me want to leave Mayfield happened in the 3rd week. Around 1 in the morning, just before the end of my shift, I noticed that the door to room 406 was unlocked. The doorknob was slightly open, as if someone had gently pulled it from inside. I didn't want to go in, but at the same time I felt compelled to look. I opened the door. The room wasn't lit, but moonlight streamed in from the small window, creating a thin patch of light in front of the old desk. On the desk was a typewriter, a decades-old Underwood, covered in dust. It wouldn't work. Unplugged. No ink cartridge, but the paper roll inside was new. Not old, yellowed paper. It was white paper that had been put in recently. I walked over. There were words on the paper, not words that someone had typed. It was a long line of characters written on top of each other, as if they had been typed repeatedly in the same place. The, percent, and, asterisk. Marks stretched out in a black streak like scratched ink. Next to the typewriter was a wooden chair. The chair legs were stirred up, as if someone had stood up in a hurry. Before I could shine the light around the room, I heard something fall to the floor behind me. I turned around. In the middle of the tiled floor was a 1980 mini tape, the kind no one used anymore. The tape label read, "Tone, last song, Sentinaitzet Oshundo." I picked it up. The tape was unusually cold. I ran out of the room, down to the ground floor, back to the security room to turn on the old tape recorder. There was only one thought in my head. Who is TN? After pressing play, I heard a loud static, then a voice. A woman's voice, trembling and panting. "If anyone can hear, please don't stay on the 4th floor. The lights are off. I hear chairs." Then a metallic sound, a typewriter. Then the sound of a chair being dragged across the floor. Someone was screaming as if being strangled. The sound of fingernails scraping against a wooden table. At the end of the tape was a whisper. "Don't open the door. Don't open the door." The tape stopped. I turned it off, unable to stand. The next day I asked for my resignation. A week later, I received an anonymous email containing old documents from the building. Internal disciplinary records from 1982. A typist named Teresa Nolan went missing during the night shift. The report read, "Suspected to have quit abruptly. No one investigated." But in the search report, the last line was underlined in red. The door to room 406 was found open. The typewriter was still hot. There were handprints on the tile floor, as if someone had knelt near the door. What I saw, pale fingers under the door, the sound of a chair being dragged, the lights flashing in invisible steps, the typewriter typing without anyone touching it, the tape recording with the sound of gasping breaths, all matched the 1982 incident. They sealed room 406, so no one would mention it again. But they couldn't lock what was inside. I left the job immediately. I left the city shortly after. But sometimes, on nights when I work in a new place, when I walk past an empty office, I still hear the faint tapping of metal keys right behind me. Click, click, click. Like someone is still trying to finish the last sentence they left unfinished the night they disappeared. A sound that doesn't belong to the living, but also doesn't belong entirely to the dead.